Welcome to today's webinar, and we have on our panel Andrew Brown from Currencies Direct. Good afternoon, Andrew.
Hi.
And Alex Radford from My Lawyer in Spain, who is also joining us after the middle of this webinar from Legal Services in Spain, who will explain to you a bit more about the two brands and what those legal companies do in regards to services for property buyers in Spain. Okay, so a little bit about, first of all, why we've invited the panel today and what's new with regards to property buying interest. And Alex will be covering on all the residency, answering your questions. We've got quite a few questions that have already been sent in. And of course, if you're preparing for a property purchase after all of this hold up with the coronavirus lockdown and restrictions, travel restrictions, Andrew Brown will be welcoming your questions for preparing your finances and getting everything in place for saving you some money when transferring funds abroad here to Spain for your purchase. So we look forward to answering your questions on that. So kicking off, first of all, let's talk about, for Alex, with My Lawyer in Spain, a firm. I know you're well known, Alex. You sit on the hub at a place in the sun, so you're very well known in this market for helping potential property buyers seeking their legal questions and answering everything that they need to know. What tips at the moment can you give regarding conveyancing and regards buying a property? Where should people start, and what are the buying tips that you can pass on right now?
Okay, thanks, Marco, for the question and for the kind invite to join the seminar. Basically, talking to someone today, and properties are selling at the moment quite quickly. I was talking to someone who in the Costa Blanca North area, and they've seen 2 or 3 properties the last few days. They've gone for the full sales price. They've seen them in the morning, gone to put an offer for them in the afternoon, and the property's been sold. So I think it's all about getting your ducks in a row. And what can you do there? There's lots of things you can do. You can set up a currency company account, and Andrew will talk to you about that. From our perspective, we'd recommend that you put a power of attorney in place, and we can apply for NIEs for you. We can open a bank account. And if you require finance for your purchase, I'd suggest that you furnish your mortgage broker. And I'd recommend an independent mortgage broker with all the information that they'll require in order to give you or to obtain for you a mortgage offer. So EVA is 10% on the mainland, 7% in the Canaries, and transfer tax starts in Andalusia at 7%, 6.5% in the Canaries, and then moving up to Murcia, it's 8%. Valencian region, which includes the popular Costa Blanca, it's 10%, and then Catalonia is 10% as well. And the Balearics is 8%. So I'd say, Mark, it's all about doing your homework, looking at your budget, and obviously coming over to Spain and getting a good feel for locations, because Spain's it's a big country, and I'd recommend you come here come here in various times of the year to see what it's like in winter, summer, spring, and autumn. And when you found a property, visit that property morning, noon, and night to get a feel for it, to see if it gets noisy at night, or if it's still the quiet property you like when you saw it and offered for it.
Okay, well, we know that the digital side of buying a property has been now adopted, so people have done a lot of their homework and been assisted by the agents by having virtual tours and being able to connect to to the process of searching properties via the digital aspect. But now's the time when there's a lot of people that have sort of reached the point where they are booking travel or want to book travel. What is the time process that you could recommend now, Alex, for the conveyancing process, actually from start to finish, putting your finger on the button?
Yeah, so start to finish on average between 4 and 12 weeks, so much quicker than other countries. Just depends on the state of the legal paperwork for the seller's property, and if any certificates were required from the local authorities, because that may take time at the moment to come through. But generally speaking, Marco, between 4 and 12 weeks.
4 and 12 weeks. And can we touch on cost there, Alex, for conveyancing, what people must budget for?
Basically, most law firms will charge, say, 1% of the purchase price with a minimum fee of around €1,500 plus tax, plus VAT at 21%. So you're looking at a normal purchase, say, minimum fee €1,815, and then it goes up depending on the value of the property. And then on top of that, you're going to pay notary fees and land registry fees, the transfer tax, which we talked about. If you buy a brand new property, you pay EVA, VAT plus stamp duty. And depending on where you buy in Spain, that stamp duty can be ranged between 1 and 1.5%. So I'd say, depending on the region you buy in Spain, you're looking at anywhere between 10 and 13% in costs overall for the purchase.
Right. Okay, that's pretty clear. Thanks for the information there, Alex. So questions here from a couple of viewers. When they want to visit Spain and now to sort of look further in situ, if you like, for the potential property that they want to purchase, what else do you recommend that they do with their time to get the documentation in place and make sure that they got the legal side of this process covered? I mean, are they appointing lawyers? The question is, are they appointing, a lawyer to take this on board before they come to do the viewing, when they do the viewing? What's the advice that you can give them?
Yeah, generally, I would suggest that when you come to Spain, you just concentrate on finding the property, because this is all property driven. If you don't find the property, then it's a kind of wasted trip, or could be a wasted trip. So I would suggest, contacting agents beforehand, arranging those appointments and viewings, but also, talking to lawyers beforehand and putting in place powers of attorney to independent lawyers who are going to be acting for yourself, and then arranging to have the NIs applied for as well. So in effect, when you come out to Spain, you don't have to worry about the legals. If you don't do the power of attorney before you come to Spain, then you can sign a power of attorney over in Spain. Mm-hmm. Typically, that will mean you going along to a notary and spending about an hour in a notary, signing the power of attorney in favour of lawyers, so that they can apply for Spanish tax numbers for you, open a bank account, act for you in the purchase when you find the property, and if you're applying for a mortgage, to sign the mortgage and the mortgage documents.
Right. Okay. And for those that are sort of now perhaps have used that time frame between one lockdown and another during the summer last year, and have moved a little bit further forward with, they know the property that they're going to purchase, advice now on the main criteria for them regarding NIE, having an NIE number and having a bank account. Is that something that should be done at the sort of time that they're going to put an offer in, or at what point do you recommend that?
No, the NIE is basically a Spanish tax number, so that's got to be paid. So you've got to have that in place for when you come to pay transfer tax on the purchase of the property, or if you're applying for a mortgage, a bank will require it. So I'd suggest putting in place the power of attorney as soon as possible. That power of attorney is a document that you'll sign before a notary, and it authorizes your lawyer to act for you in Spain. So it's a very important document. So be careful who you sign that power of attorney in favor of. Make sure they're independent lawyers, registered with the College of Lawyers, and that they've got professional liability insurance in place, and they send you terms of business setting out the costs and services that they'll provide. So I'd suggest, Marco, doing all of that up front. So when you come to Spain, you don't have to worry about going to the notary or doing your NIEs. You just got to come over and look for a property.
That's really good advice. So really what we're talking about is having all of that done up front. You're available. Your firm is taking on board a lot of instructions for property buyers right now. It's quite a busy time. It's getting busier now for this process.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we were seeing a lot of interest from buyers from all over the world, really, looking at coming to Spain as soon as they can. Some of them have landed already, and they're looking at buying properties. So so it's a busy time, and the market is moving. And there's certain pockets of population and properties around Spain which are very popular, And I'd say there is definitely a seller's market. So yeah, it's an interesting market now.
So in respect then, really, Alex, it's time is of the essence. If you are, if you are looking at taking the steps further, is engage with a lawyer, get the power of attorney in place, get all the documentation that you can up front, so that when you come to Spain, you can concentrate on securing the purchase, find the property that of your liking, and then securing the purchase and putting the offer in.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so I think now we need to go over to Andrew for some questions, because we've got to the stage really where we've had some tips and advice for prospective property buyers, Andrew, and now's time for you to answer a couple of these questions regarding the next bit, which is getting funds across to Spain. How are you finding things to kick off, Andrew, right now? And tell us a bit about Currencies Direct.
Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, my name is Andrew Brown. I've been with Currencies Direct working here in Spain for the last 15 years. Currencies Direct actually started 25 years ago, and we were the first company outside of the banking world to offer foreign exchange to private individuals. So we've helped build a big industry now. Now, if you go online, there are many companies specializing in currency exchange. With the markets at the moment, Marco, to answer your question, we've seen a consistency in purchases, particularly towards the back end of last year as Brexit was coming to its conclusion and people wanted to be in Spain prior to the Brexit cutoff point. But we're thankfully, from a Spanish perspective, still seeing a very healthy demand for foreign buyers, particularly from the British markets at the moment. And I'm sure once those flights will resume, potentially even without quarantine, and a lot more people are going to come over and look at their options, Marco.
Okay. And the questions that we got a couple of questions here from the viewers this evening. When would you recommend that the finance arrangements, people should actually start looking at getting quotes and arranging for transfer of funds prior to purchasing a property?
So if we go back to Alex's comments before, saying that typically a resale property will be sort of anywhere between 4 and 12 weeks, then basically I think realistically the process has to start one layer before that. So if people are coming over to Spain and they've got a sterling budget or a budget outside of the euro, US dollar, you really need to understand the value of a currency in that window of time. And if we take the journey since I've been in Spain over the 15 years of the value of sterling, we've seen it range from 160s to 140 to almost 1-to-1, now kind of around the 115 mark. So I think the important thing is to understand, if you've got a budget in sterling, what's that going to buy you in euros? And certainly by considering a foreign exchange company, that's going to maximize that purchase value. So at the beginning, when you come to Spain, understand the value of sterling versus euro. But also, once you've secured your property, normally the buying process is an initial deposit, then a 10% deposit, and then locking in at notary the final balance of the transaction. And certainly from my perspective, I think it's very important for people to consider, once they put down the 10% deposit on a property, to really think about fixing the exchange rate in that window of time, because if you're only between a window of maybe 4 to 6 weeks and there is a sharp dip in the value of sterling, your asset is going to cost you more than maybe your budget has. So certainly currency exchange companies offer what's called a forward contract, which is our industry version of buy now, pay later, which will allow a client to lock in an exchange rate in the live market on the day they choose and have that rate locked into a year in advance. So some people like to be more cautious. So at the very beginning, they lock in the rate so they know exactly how many euros they've got. But also a lot of people like to wait until they've found the property, done their 10% deposit, and then lock in a rate. There is no right or wrong in currency exchange. We're very clever in hindsight, and it's about the timing to protect somebody's budget, Marco.
Perfect. Okay, that's all very clear. So regarding a question here, why would somebody look at using an exchange company such as yourself rather than going through their bank?
So if I kind of tailor this to the UK, if you look at UK high street banks, all banks will offer what's called an immediate transfer, where they'll lock in or give you an advisory rate and then send euros across to Spain. There are 3 or 4 significant reasons why you should choose a currency exchange company rather than a high street bank. Firstly, the exchange rates that specialist organizations offer are far, far more competitive than the high street banks. Second of all, we fix our exchange rates at the time of the transaction. So a client can have as many quotations as they like, but nothing gets legally fixed until the client says, yes, lock in this rate, sell that amount of sterling by that amount of euros, where typically a high street bank in the UK will give you an indication rate, but they don't lock it in, so you don't know what rate you're getting because they apply it typically at the end of the day. Also, with Currencies Direct, we guarantee no receiving charges in any Spanish bank. And the reason that we can do that is that the sterling that a client sells goes from their UK bank to our client account in the UK, which is Barclays, no charges. We do not move the money outside of the UK, but the euros that they buy from us comes from our European account in Spain to their nominated Spanish bank, meaning not only do you get a far better exchange rate, but there are no charges to send the money in the UK, no processing charges and no receiving charges in any Spanish bank. So you're really maximizing your purchasing power. And also we offer a range of products that banks don't offer. For example, Market Watch, which is a free of charge service, where when it hits the target rate that client wants, we'll notify that client to see if you wish to trade. And banks will not offer that product as they typically fix their rates at the end of the day. And also we offer what's called the forward contract, which allows you to lock in that rate on the given day and have that rate fixed up to a year. And banks do not offer that facility to private individuals. So it's also about the rate, but also the range of services that a currency exchange company will offer, Marco.
Okay, well, you've answered 2 questions in one there, Andrew, because the next one was about the advantages of locking in. Is that a service that you offer where banks don't? So I suppose that's a big one really for most people. Take the pressure off and get the rate they want, lock it in, and they've got time to casually then concentrate, as Alex recommended, on actually the property purchase, finding the right property for their use. So what is the market? How are things looking, Andrew? What sort of advice can you give? I know there's nothing that you could, there's no easy way of saying what's around the corner. But as far as people looking now, and they have been doing for the last 12 months and being restricted and holding things up, would you say that it's worth now locking in rates or leaving? I mean, how are things looking in the market? People need to know what your advice is on this.
It's probably the question I get asked most, Marco.
Every day.
What's the markets going to do? And in reality, if you got 10 currency experts in a row, you'll get 10 variations of what's going to happen. At the moment, markets are driven not just by economic data, which was what markets were driven on in years gone by, but a lot of fear, speculation and rumor mill. And now that we've got Brexit out of the way, the big criteria that's moving money outside of economic data is the speed of vaccine rollout, the speed of economic recovery in countries. And the UK can take a lot of credit for the way they've rolled out the vaccines, in which case that should their markets, let's say, open quicker than Europe, then that will add strength to the value of the pound. But again, if Europe can speed up those vaccines roll out, then that could just heighten the value of euros, which has a seesaw effect. If euro goes up, pound will go down. I think the good thing that people can look at from a sterling and US dollar perspective at the moment is that it is a lot stronger than it has been for many, many months. So certainly trading around the 115 mark, sterling euro, I would still say that, again, to answer Marco's question on when is the right time to buy, it depends on somebody's appetite for risk. So if you can afford markets to go down, then we say to people, well, maybe you wish to wait and monitor the markets. But certainly if you're tracking a budget and it hits that budget, I think that is a sensible time to lock in the rate so that you don't let the currency go against you. But of course, if it does go up, you can't take advantage of it. But I think the important thing that we say at Currencies Direct is we want to get you the best rate in the window of time you have. And that kind of starts from the day you put your reservation fee down to when you've got to complete at notary. And obviously markets can go up and down within those timescales. And, you know, if God forbid something happens in the Middle East now, it could have a dramatic effect on oil, on value of sterling, euro, and the US dollar. So I would suggest that that's when you need to talk to your respective currency company in the window of time that you have to buy and sell that currency.
Okay, that's a good answer from a very difficult question, really, Andrew. So getting in touch with you and your team, you've mentioned obviously Currencies Direct. They are a market leader in Spain for currency transfer. You've got lots of offices. Could you just finalise then on people to, you do one-to-ones, getting, you know, you've got offices for people to visit. Well, how do you recommend people taking this forward in regards to online, via your offices? What, where do you stand with Currencies Direct and making engaging with clients?
It's a good question, Marco. And our perspective, our philosophy at Currencies Direct is to offer face-to-face services to clients. And certainly in the buying process, we've got 16 offices in Spain. So certainly along the coastline where a lot of people look to buy second homes or main homes, we're never too far away from one of our offices. And I think if people are going to be moving life sum savings, some people like to understand who they're dealing with, who the faces are, and where they go to discuss those requirements. So for us, we can engage in one of our 16 offices in Spain. We're happy to engage on the telephone, via video links. It depends on what the client's looking for, but certainly we feel that human face-to-face contact is the best way for people to feel most comfortable with the process, and we value that. And you can visit our website at currenciesdirect.com for all the locations in Spain and the various contact details. But I know, similar to Alex, is it's always better if you can see someone face to face, whether that's via video or personable in one of the offices when you come over.
Yeah, so it could be quite something else that's on that list when, you know, when people are actually in Spain viewing properties, that they could pop in and start the process. Certainly have a chat with one of your staff in the local offices around.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Andrew, for that. There may be some further questions later on, and I will remind people at the end that they can get your great offer via the Spain Property Guide Amazon deal. So that's another way of getting in touch. Okay, so now we're going to branch on to something that will affect both property buyers and moving on to people that perhaps have already purchased a property, but really for those people that wish to live full-time in Spain, either to retire or they want to live full-time in Spain and work remotely, so live in the sun but still have the pleasure of working. A lot of people have switched to remote working now. What process and what visas do you recommend, and what are required?
Okay, so there's quite a few questions in that question, Marco, so let's just break it down.
Yeah.
So the general rule now is that if you wish to spend more than 90 days in a 180-day period in Spain, then you basically need to apply for a visa. And the type of visa that you apply for depends on your personal circumstances. So if you're buying a property for more than 500,000 euros, then you can apply for what's commonly known as the golden visa. If you're not buying a property for that value, but you still want to live in Spain for more than 90 days in a 180-day period, you can apply for what's known as the non-lucrative visa. And under the non-lucrative visa, you can't work in Spain, and under the golden visa, you can work in Spain. Okay, if you want to work in Spain but don't want to spend 500,000 euros on a property, then the work visa scenario becomes a bit more complicated, because in effect, you need to be able to either have a job offer in place already, and you're employer will help you obtain the visa, or if you're coming out here to open up a business, you have to apply. And also all of these visas now, Marco, whereas last year, I'm talking mainly for British people or non-Europeans, they would apply, British people last year could apply for those visas, or they could apply for those residencies here in Spain. So they could come out to Spain and start the process here. In effect now, as a result of Brexit, and after the 1st of January this year, all those visas have to be applied for in the consulate in your home country. So under our kind of GetSpanishResidency.com division, we've got people dedicated to helping clients apply for the visas. And we're active for clients from all over the world, not just British people, but also Americans, Canadians, people in the Middle East, Australians, all considered as non-Europeans. They've got to choose which visa they want to apply for, and you know their circumstances. If someone owns a property of more than 500,000 and has owned property since September 2013, then they can possibly apply for a golden visa as well.
Right. Okay. So you've broken that down, and obviously the criteria changes quite a lot from somebody who wants to work, or for somebody who just wants to live in Spain and is retired. So the criteria then for the retiree, what do they need to have in place in regards to, you know, the application process, and how long does it take? And when should they apply?
Well, the application I'd say, so first of all, the criteria for the main applicant coming out to Spain, they've got to have a UK address and they've got to have a Spanish address. Okay, they've got to have private medical insurance in place. They've got to have a medical certificate with specific wording on it. They've got to have a clean criminal record certificate. If they're married or they've got children, they've got to have duplicate marriage certificates and birth certificates for their children. And then the financial resources. They've got to prove that they've got sufficient money to live on whilst they're in Spain. And for the main applicant, that is €27,115.20, and for dependents, so children, spouses, it's €6,778 a year. Okay, and these are minimum amounts, and they can be a combination of income from pensions, rental income of properties that you may own abroad, savings. But for example, in the case of the non-lucrative visa, that can't be salary, as you're not allowed to work in Spain. And you don't just have to have the money sat there. It could be money that you've got coming in over the year. So you've got the yearly amounts, the 27,115.20 or €6,778 for the dependents, and then monthly for the main applicants, it's on the non-lucrative visa side and the golden visa side, it's €2,259.60 and €564.90 for dependents. So that generally is the criteria, Marco. And people have got to, applicants have got to put all these documents together. Some of those need to be apostilled and translated. So it takes about, I'd say, we're finding about 3 to 4 weeks, maybe longer, to get the documents together, collect those documents, we review them, submit them to the embassy, and then the embassy can take up to 3 months to review that. Typically, they're coming back much quicker at the moment. Depends on how much workload they've got, and then they grant you, for example, in the case of the non-lucrative visa, they'll grant you the approval, and they'll stamp your passport with the visa. You come to Spain and you apply for the TIE card when you're in Spain. So the visa is for 90 days. You come to Spain, and within a month, you have to apply for the TIE card, and the TIE card is the foreigner's identification number. So that's the non-lucrative visa present. The golden visa, if you apply for it from your home country, then when it's granted, it's only for 1 year. So I'd actually recommend that we apply for that when you're in Spain, because if it's granted for a 2-year period. And then you'll get the TIE card as well, that foreigner's identification number. And any work visas or business plans or entrepreneurs visa, you've got to apply for that from the UK with a business plan or a job offer in place.
Right. Okay. And I'm just going to really think about Andrew again. Andrew, with Currencies Direct, are you helping people with putting their money across? Because obviously with this service of transfers, they need to set up something that's going to get there. If it's a visa that's being done on the back of income, pension, non-lucrative visa, they need that money regularly sent over to a Spanish bank account. Is that correct? Is that something that you're involved in?
Correct. So we have seen an increase in applications of people coming to us prior to property purchase, wanting to lodge sums within the banking system in Spain so that they can actually identify that those funds are sat within Spain, so that when they start the process of the visa application, then the Spanish government can see the actual funds in Spain itself. So yeah, we have seen a larger increase in that type of application. But again, Alex is the expert on that, but it depends if someone's buying it for the holiday home, which then they just send the money across for the actual purchase and taxes. But when people are thinking of looking to emigrate here on a more permanent basis, that's when we have seen, Marco, people lodge funds initially prior to property purchase to start the applications.
Okay, so for anyone who's looking at the non-lucrative visa, and of course they can speak to Alex directly and get the full information, get a one-to-one consultation, because obviously different circumstances, making sure that you meet all the criteria in regards to the funding, proving your funds. That application is being done from the UK. That's right, Alex, from the UK only for that application.
Yeah,
okay.
but Marco, so we've got a dedicated team who specialise in basically helping clients collate the documents, prepare the documents, assist them with the whole process from start to finish, completing the forms, helping them get the TIE cards when they come over, checking the documents, making sure that they're in force, that they haven't gone out of date, and basically helping to prioritise the documents that will be needed, because there's quite a lot involved. You know?
And once this process is actually completed and successful, Alex, how does then the applicant, at what stage do they look at opening the bank account in Spain? They need to come and actually then come to Spain, visit Spain to get their bank account.
Again, using the power of attorney marker that I referred to early on, we would apply for that. We'd open that bank account for them using the power of attorney.
Okay, so we can do that beforehand.
There's lots of things we can do remotely for them, such as apply for the NIs, open the bank account. The Spanish consul wants to see 6 months bank statements for 6 months bank statements, and that could be UK or Spanish bank statements. But it's always good to have a Spanish bank account for them to see that monies are in here. And of course, the property, if you own a property, then that just makes your application a bit stronger than if you're renting a property. But renting, having a rental property address is absolutely fine for the applications as well. Okay,
so just to be clear then on the property buying process, once they've a client has actually engaged in that, they should really be making this, and they know that they're coming to Spain to live under this non-lucrative visa application. Is that sort of being done then at the same sort of time as the start of the conveyancing process, to put it all in a sort of time?
Yeah, it's all about timing now, and it is quite, it's become messier since Brexit for British people especially. But by and large, if you retain a UK property and you buy a property in Spain, that's the easiest way of doing it. Otherwise, you've got to time it carefully so that you present all your documentation, get the visa, and remember you've got 90 days within a 180-day period, so you can come out to Spain, look for a property, offer on that property, and then when you've got the address of that property, you can submit the documents then. And then be granted approval. And just something that's very important for people to bear in mind is the Spanish tax year runs from the 1st of January to the 31st of December. So lots of people are planning their move to Spain based around taxes that they could end up paying in Spain. So if someone sold a property in the UK and that was their main residence, and they become a resident here beforehand, they could potentially be taxed for capital gains tax here if they spend more than 6 months in Spain. So the key in Spain is if you spend more than 183 nights in Spain, you become a Spanish tax resident. So if you became if you move to Spain in August 2021, you're not going to be in Spain for 183 days. There's just not enough days left in the year. So you don't have to worry about that. But if you are setting up assets in the UK, it's important to kind of talk to us about that as well. You might need accountancy advice, we can introduce you to accountants or financial advisors, because you're moving your things like ISAs, your income, tax-free savings accounts, etc. That all changes when you move to Spain, because they're no longer then tax-free. So I think it's about planning the whole move carefully. But by and large, Marco, apply for the visa, look for the property more or less at the same time. As long as you meet the criteria that we discussed earlier, you're going to get your visa. It's a paper exercise. You might have to go back and provide them with some more information, but basically you will get that.
Yeah, well, you're doing that on a regular process. You've had enough practice already with that over the last few months. So of course you've probably got that down.
But no, just so you're aware, Mark, I mean, last year we handled lots of residency for British clients, because it was a big year with Brexit. But we also acted for non-Europeans last year, and the procedure that's in place for non-Europeans is exactly the same this year as it was for non-Europeans last year. So we're familiar with that process. Just that now, because there's a lot of British people applying for the non-lucrative visas, we've got a lot more going on than last year. Last year, British people could apply for Spanish residency directly. Now they've got to apply for the visa. But the process, so we were familiar with the process last year.
Right. Okay. So same process. That's clear. You're familiar with it already. It makes no odds, because it's exactly the same as the other non-European countries. But of course, from a British point of view, or from a house buyer's point of view, if they're selling a property and they're trying that timing process, if you've said about the 90 days, but the 90 days soon passes, and of course, if they've got to apply for this in the UK and have a British address, a UK address, then they need to do that before they sell their property in the UK. Yeah,
or they use a family member's address.
Right.
Yeah, they just need an address in the UK. But yeah, you're right. They've got to prepare all of that. Yeah, but the Spanish authorities are aware of that, especially people who are moving to Spain. They're aware that you're setting up in the UK, you're moving to Spain.
Okay, right. Okay, so that covers the non-lucrative visa, and the advice, I think, just to remind the viewers that they should contact you on a one-to-one basis, just to be totally clear on what is required, and if they want to engage in the process, you can give them the details on how to do that.
And we've got leaflets on the non-lucrative visa and the golden visa. So if people want to contact us, we're happy to provide that information to them.
Yeah, and of course, you will at the end be reminding people about contacting you through your offices around Spain, all the popular areas in Spain. Okay, yeah. So there is another question here. We're going to switch to back to the golden visa questions, Alex. Somebody who has already invested in a property in Spain, but didn't apply for the golden visa because they didn't need the golden visa, can they use the value of that property now, as well as investment into a business? They've currently got a business in Spain, so the value of the property plus funds that have been deposited into a Spanish company, and combine the two in order to meet the criteria for a golden visa.
No, in effect, for the golden visa, you have to have property or properties worth with a value of more than 500,000 euros in a deed. Okay, and that's per applicant. Okay, so the main applicant, so one of the spouses, the lead applicant, can own the property in their names, and then the spouse would be considered as a beneficiary or as a dependent. You can't combine lump sums or money in a bank account with that. However, the next stage up, Marco, if you haven't bought property 500,000, then you can also obtain the golden visa if you deposit €1 million in a bank account. Okay, So, or your property, a company has €1 million worth of shares. But why would you want to kind of put all that money away? But that's an option as well. Okay.
Okay. So if someone has got a property, but it's not worth the 500,000, they can't combine that value with other investment they've got in their business.
No.
Okay. So what's the advice then for that person in regards to having already a business in Spain, but not having a Spanish visa?
Right. So, well, first of all, I mean, there's a mad rush and unfair news, as far as I'm concerned, at the end of March and beginning of April, from the British press saying that basically, lots of people were being evicted out of Spain because their visas were expiring. That wasn't quite the case. British people are only allowed to spend 90 days in a 180-day period in Spain now because of the UK leaving the EU. Those are the rules. So UK people, all UK citizens who don't have a visa, going to spend more than 3 months here, have got to leave. And if they leave now, then potentially their passport could be stamped with deported on it. So if you're here without a visa or a residency, then kind of contact us. We can discuss your personal circumstances. There are quite a few people in that situation, and there could be solutions for that. But we've had basically 3-4 years since the referendum result to change, to kind of basically update and regularize people's situation. So, but in effect, Marco, someone was owning and operating a business, I'd be surprised if they weren't a resident already or paying taxes here. But if they haven't got a visa and they haven't got residency, then in effect they have to leave the country and they have to go back to the UK and apply for the visa. Then have to apply for the work visa.
The work visa. So potentially, even if someone already has an existing business, so they're not looking to do a new startup, but they are not a resident before the 31st of December last year, and they haven't applied to be a resident, they would need to start the process under a working visa application. Right. Yeah. I suggest that then these circumstances should be taken on board as a one-to-one consultation with yourself, Alex, because there could be some other circumstances you might be able to help with making it a bit of a smoother ride.
Marco, we've had another question through. It says, what happens for inheritance after a person has obtained a golden visa, has passed on and leaves the property to a non-resident? Well, actually, the golden visa is personal. So it's personal to that person. So when they die, that visa dies with it. Okay. So the good news, however, is that when you inherit that property, if we insert a value of €500,000 or more, and it hasn't got any debts or charges or mortgages on it, so you're inheriting an asset in Spain of more than €500,000 or a series of properties, then that inheritance deed can be used to apply for a golden visa. And we've recently completed a similar matter where someone had inherited property of more than €500,000, and we were able to apply for a golden visa for them on that basis.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a good answer. So on the basis of the golden visa, while we're still on that, what else is the benefits then? Because if someone doesn't need to be a tax resident, but they want to be able to come and go or stay as long as they want, not be restricted to the 90 days, they can still go for the golden visa but stay a tax resident in their own country.
Yeah, correct. So in order for the non-lucrative visa to be renewed, you have to spend 180 nights in Spain. And the golden visa, there's no minimum required, just 1 night is enough for it to be renewed.
Okay, and you earlier just recommended, just to be clear, that anyone looking for the golden visa comes to Spain to do that, actually visit Spain to do that.
Yeah, they apply for it from Spain because here it's granted for a 2-year period, yeah.
Okay, and again, just finally on the visas, the time frame, what is that on a golden visa when you come to Spain, or whether you apply in your own country? Obviously, it's better to come apply for it in Spain, come to Spain. But what is the time period for getting that in place, Alex?
So I would allow between 1 and 6 months to plan for the visas.
Between 1 and 6 months.
Yeah.
It's quite a wide time frame there. It's taking different times in different areas, no doubt.
Yeah, exactly. But you've got quite a lot of documents to collate. You've got to submit those documents, and then you've got to wait for the appointment at the embassy or the consulate. You go along to that, attend the consulate appointment, and for British nationals in the UK, the consulates are in Edinburgh, Manchester, or London. We're acting to clients who are applying for visas in Miami as well at the moment. But yeah, so you've got to prepare the document, submit that. You've got to take things like private medical insurance. So you've got to get quotes for that. Some of those documents are going to be translated. They've got to be apostilled. You've got to get 6 months bank statements together. So it's quite involved. So I'd say, yeah, this whole process takes careful planning.
So just to remind then the viewers, you can contact Andrew Brown directly through the website. Is that correct, Andrew? And your email address?
Via the website, or again, if they look on the spainpropertyguide.com actual brochure, then basically they can find further details to contact us through that, Marco.
Okay, so to remind people, that is, just put the word read at the beginning, .spainpropertyguide.com, and you will see links, and you will get a benefit by doing that and applying for a quote directly with Currencies Direct. And Alex, yourself, to remind people, you're opening up in a very popular area in Spain very shortly, in Cusada.
Yeah, so to contact us on the residency side, so visas, golden visas, non-lucrative visas, work visas, visit our website, getspanishResidency.com. And if you're interested in talking to us about buying a property, please send me an email to aradford@mylawyerinspain.com, and I can send you some information about the buying process and our leaflets.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thanks for everyone for joining. To everyone for watching and joining us in this webinar. And keep looking on our Facebook page, and you will see further webinars and information that the panel here today will post, and of course update on things like anything changing with the travel, and look forward to seeing you person to person in their offices here in Spain. Thanks to the panel. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Andrew, for joining me.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure.
All the best. Goodbye.
Bye.